The London Beer Flood. It's October 17, 1814. Our story takes place in the St. Giles Rookery, a densely populated, overcrowded slum notorious for its breweries, distilleries, and poverty. The Moo and Company Brewery on Tottenham Court Road was one of the biggest in London. It housed massive wooden vats, some holding thousands of barrels of beer, like giant liquid time bombs. In the afternoon, one of the massive vats, holding over 135,000 gallons of porter beer, began to groan. Cracks appeared. Workers saw it, but due to the immense size and the sheer weight of the liquid, they assumed it was just typical wear and tear. Then, at around 5:30 in the afternoon, it happened. The massive vat burst. The force was so intense it ripped through the brewery wall. But that was just the beginning. A domino effect followed. The pressure from the first ruptured vat caused several others to give way. In moments, a colossal wave of porter beer, estimated at 323,000 gallons, or over 1.4 million liters, surged into the streets. The slum inhabitants had no chance. Homes were deluged. Basements, where many families lived, became deadly traps. People were swept away, crushed by debris, or drowned in a 15-foot-high wave of sticky, dark beer. 8 people died instantly, including a mother and daughter having tea and a 3-year-old boy. The air was thick with the smell of beer and despair. The Moo Brewery was taken to court, but the disaster was ruled an act of God. No one was held accountable. The Moo Brewery was ultimately compensated for the lost beer, while the victims' families were left to bear their losses alone. The Great London Beer Flood remains one of the strangest and most tragic industrial accidents in history. It led to some changes in vat construction and safety regulations. But for the victims and their families, it was a grim reminder of the dangers hidden in plain sight. The Dublin Whiskey Fire, June 18, 1875. A dull but peaceful evening settles over Dublin's Liberties District. But then, just past supper time, boom, a massive fire breaks out on Chamber Street inside a bonded warehouse packed to the rafters with barrels of whiskey. How did it start? We have no clue, and we may never know. But what we do know is that the flames spread quickly through the storehouse, hungrily devouring everything in its path. Inside, roughly 5,000 barrels of highly flammable booze. When the fire finally reached them, the barrels didn't just burn, they burst, sending whiskey pouring out onto the cobblestone streets. The result? Rivers of flaming alcohol. And get this, the fire wasn't even noticed at first. Not until some pigs, startled by the blazing stream of whiskey, began squealing loud enough to alert the neighborhood. Locals described it as a burning stream of fire, snaking through the slums, igniting haystacks, shops, and even livestock. Luckily, most residents were able to evacuate in time. But here's where it gets a little absurd. Instead of running away from the fire, people ran toward it to scoop up whiskey from the streets, with hats, with boots, with buckets. Some even laid down in burning puddles just to drink it. These Dubliners didn't just chase the high, they redefined the meaning of alcoholism. And the real twist? None of the 13 people who died were burned. They all died of alcohol poisoning. Word of the fire spread fast. Curious onlookers poured into the streets to witness the chaos. But instead of staying back, many joined in, adding to the growing crowd drinking straight from the whiskey river. Firefighters faced a nightmare. They couldn't use water. It would have only spread the fire. So instead, they turned to sand, dirt, and horse dung to smother the flames. Eventually, the blaze was brought under control. But the aftermath? 13 dead, dozens injured, many buildings damaged, and a city that reeked of toasted liquor for days. The press called it a river of fire and death. But not all the barrels were lost. Some were dragged to safety before the flames could reach them. And the drunks? A few were spotted stumbling into the inferno itself, trying to loot whiskey straight from the burning building. As for the locals, some just called it a waste of good drink. The Dublin Whiskey Fire remains one of history's strangest disasters. A whiskey-soaked fever dream of fire, chaos, and unbelievably bad decisions. It's not a cautionary tale. It's proof that if you set alcohol on fire, someone somewhere will still try to drink it. 10 Cent Beer Night, Cleveland, 1974. The Cleveland Indians wanted to push a promotion to improve attendance, so the front office had a brilliant idea. Let's sell beer for 10 cents a cup. It seemed like a great idea. So on June 4th, 1974, over 25,000 fans poured into Cleveland Stadium, each one allowed to buy 6 beers per purchase, with no cap on how many purchases they could make. To make things even more explosive, the Texas Rangers were in town, the same team that had gotten into a nasty brawl with Cleveland fans just 6 days earlier. And leading the Rangers, Billy Martin, the hot-headed manager, beloved villain, and gasoline on any fire. His presence alone brought a bigger crowd. The game starts and proceeds as normal, but by the 3rd inning, people were already shirtless, hammered, and fighting. A woman ran onto the field and flashed the crowd. A father and son duo mooned the umpire. Fans started tossing hot dogs, folding chairs, and fireworks onto the field. One guy ran out and tried to steal an outfielder's glove mid-play. It was barely baseball. It was a free-for-all with cheap beer. By the 9th inning, the Indians managed to tie the game. But just as they were mounting a comeback, a drunk fan ran on the field and tried to steal a Rangers player's cap, specifically Jeff Burroughs. That was the final straw. Billy Martin, never one to back down, stormed the field with his team, bats in hand, not to play baseball, but to fight off the fans. What followed was a stadium-wide riot. Fans were swinging at players, rushing dugouts, throwing seats, and looting the field. They ripped up bases, stole bats, helmets, gloves, and even grabbed pieces of turf. It was a drunken battlefield with souvenirs. Police arrived in riot gear. The umpire had no choice. The game was forfeited to the Texas Rangers. 9 people were arrested, but in truth, hundreds should have been. And the Indians? They still ran another beer night later that season, just with slightly more rules.